Today, after I was done with my class, I was tasked to actually look at the vertebral column and in terms of giving the difference between the lumbar vertebra and the thoracic vertebra. But I'll first be able to inform you that the vertebral column also referred to as the backbone, runs from the base of the brain. And of course, the base of the brain, just from the brain's stem, in terms of having what you call the medulla oblongata and the cerebellum forming the main parts of the hindbrain. And this vertebral column or the backbone has to actually end up forming what you call the tail tip. And of course, these are just vertebrae. They are called vertebrae. Vertebrae to mean the bones forming the vertebral column. And in as far as anatomy of a human being is concerned, there are 33 vertebrae forming the vertebral column or the backbone of a human being. And of course, these vertebrae are actually named as follows. The one that runs or actually gets attached to the base of the brain is referred to as the cervical vertebra. Cervical vertebra. And of course, the one that doesn't to it is called thoracic vertebra. Just below thoracic vertebra is what we refer to as lumbar vertebra. And below that, we have what we call the sacral vertebra. And lastly, we have what we call the caudal, and others will call it the coccygeal vertebra. So those are the main types of vertebra that form what you call the vertebral column or the backbone in a human being. And you've said these are supposed to actually add up to 33. For example, there are 7 cervical vertebrae. There are 12 thoracic vertebrae. There are 5 lumbar vertebrae. There are 5 sacral vertebrae. These are the numbers in human beings, remember. And there are 4 caudal vertebrae. So that in total, that must be able to end up giving us 33 vertebrae, forming what you call the vertebral column. And you see, these numbers will be able to differ in as far as different animals are concerned. For example, you might actually be able to talk about 5 in a human being in as far as the sacral vertebra is concerned and end up getting 4 in a rabbit, you see. So the anatomy of animals differ in terms of the number of each and every type of the section of the vertebral column. So I'll actually be able to just have a look at the thoracic vertebrae and the lumbar vertebrae in terms of the anatomy, the morphology, the structures of these 2 main types of vertebra along the vertebral column, because that was the basis of what I was actually asked by that student. And to proceed, I think you should actually be able to first get this as a very good diagram of what you call the thoracic vertebrae. Thoracic vertebra. So this is what I can have as a diagram to help us understand the whole aspect of these Don't worry about the diagram as long as you understand the concept. So I don't worry so much about the diagram. Yeah, don't mind so much about the diagram. So you can have this. So this is what you call the capitular demifacet. Okay, this is another capitular demifacet. This is just the lateral view. This is what you call the large centrum. You can also be able to call it cell body. And we have this one as the post-zyga apophysis. So you're going to call the post-zyga. So it may be somewhere here. Yes, post-zyga apophysis, zyga apophysis. Then we can have this as our transverse process. Okay, this can be our pre-zyga apophysis, and literally we can have this as our tuberculum. And this is what you call the large and long neurospine. So this is just a diagram that can help us understand how a thoracic vertebra looks like. So this is the long neurospine. We have what you call the post-zyga apophysis. We have what you call the pre-zyga apophysis. We have what you call the transverse processes or the transverse process. We have what you call the tuberculum, the capitular demifacet, and then the capitular demifacet on this side. Then we have what you call the large centrum or the cell body. So these are the main parts of a thoracic vertebra. So I'm going to explain those parts in terms of how they can be able to make this up. Of course, a very important part of the vertebral column, well adapted to actually perform its functions in as far as support is concerned. And you see, this forms part of what you call the axial skeleton. And you see, if you look at the centrum is very large. And I've told you thoracic vertebrae are how many? They are actually 12 in a human being. So first, the thoracic vertebra is a section along the vertebral column or the backbone that just comes after the cervical vertebra. It is found in the thoracic region, just below the neck. And you see, this thoracic vertebra has 12 vertebrae that are actually arranged in such a way that they can be able to actually lie on top of each other as you move from the cervical vertebra down to the lumbar vertebra. One, they have a large centrum to provide support, because remember, at the bottom here, they have the cervical vertebra on top of them. So to support this cervical vertebra, we require a large centrum of this thoracic vertebra. So one, the thoracic vertebra or the thoracic vertebrae have a large centrum that can provide support to the vertebral column. Majorly, for example, the cervical vertebra above it. Now, number two, we have what you call short transverse processes. So these thoracic vertebrae have short transverse processes. Probably, whether they are short or not, they actually provide a surface for the attachment of muscles. So the short transverse processes offer surface for the attachment of muscles. Now, we have other surfaces for attachment of muscles, and these surfaces are the pre-zygapophysis and the post-zygapophysis. So the pre-zygapophysis just close to the transverse process, and the post-zygapophysis on the long neurospine also provide a surface for attachment of muscles. So the pre-zygapophysis close to the transverse process and the post-zygapophysis on the neurospine provide a surface for the attachment of muscles. Now, the thoracic vertebra is a region where there's also the articulation between that vertebrae and, of course, the ribs. For example, the capitulum of a rib, just look at this. The capitulum of a rib will articulate with the capitular demifasciate on the centrum of the thoracic vertebra. Look at this. This is the rib coming. Ribs articulate with the sternum anteriorly and with the thoracic vertebra posteriorly. So in front of a human being, the ribs articulate with the sternum. You see? And at the back of someone's body, the ribs articulate with the thoracic vertebra. So the capitulum of the rib will articulate with the capitular demifasciate on the thoracic vertebra. I repeat. The capitulum of the rib articulate with the capitulum demifasciate of the thoracic vertebra. And the tuberculum of the rib articulates with the tuberculum of the thoracic vertebra just close to the transverse process. So that means there are 2 points where the ribs articulate with the thoracic vertebra. For example, the capitulum of the rib comes and makes contact or articulates with the capitular demifasciate on the centrum of the thoracic vertebra, while the tuberculum of this rib articulates with the tuberculum on the transverse process of this thoracic vertebra. And of course, if you look at this, you'll realize that this thoracic vertebra still has a long neurospine. And that long neurospine will offer a surface for the attachment of muscles, such as the trapezius muscles just on someone's back. So the pre-zygapophysis, the post-zygapophysis, and the transverse processes are short to offer surface for the attachment of muscles. The capitulum demifasciate in the centrum articulates with the capitulum of the rib, and the tuberculum on the transverse process of the thoracic vertebra articulates with the tuberculum of the rib. The centrum is large enough to actually offer support to the vertebral column, and the neurospine is very long to as well offer surface for the attachment of the back muscles. So that's just a brief description of how the thoracic vertebra works in terms of providing support and as far as the vertebral column of a human being is concerned. Now, let's look at what we refer to as the lumbar vertebra. A lumbar vertebra. I'll just first make a sketch of this and be able now to proceed forward. So don't mind about the diagram. I'll actually try to make a sketch that looks like what you're supposed to expect. That is good. So, okay. Yeah, hey, this is what I can be able to have. And this is what you call the neural spine. That is actually projecting from that point. You have what you call the metapophysis as a projection. You have what you call the anapophysis. Okay. This is the transverse process. This is, of course, if it is in a rabbit, it's called hyperpophysis. This is what you call the centrum. And of course, this is what you call, so this is the centrum, the whole of this is the centrum. Then this is what you call the neurocanal. So let's proceed. This is what you call the lumbar vertebra. It just comes below or just comes after the thoracic vertebra. The lumbar vertebra, or the lumbar vertebra as a section of the vertebral column, consists of 5 vertebrae. They are found in the abdominal region. Just of the thoracic region, or within the abdomen. And this lumbar vertebrae, or this lumbar vertebra, has the following features. Number 1, it has a long neurospine that offers a surface for the attachment of abdominal muscles. A long neurospine, which is also large, to offer a surface area for the attachment of abdominal muscles. On either side of the neurospine are projections or articular facets that we actually refer to as metapophyses. These projections or articular facets, called metapophyses, will offer a surface for the attachment of muscles. So on either side of the neurospine are projections called metapophyses, which offer a surface for the attachment of the abdominal muscles. And we also have on this end the transverse processes. You can see them. So the transverse processes are large in the lumbar vertebra. They are long and large, of course. They offer a surface for the attachment of abdominal muscles. So these transverse processes on either side of this hypophysis will offer surface for the attachment of abdominal muscles. Now on this end, we have what we call the anapophyses as articular facets or projections also. So anapophyses will always project from the transverse processes. And this anapophysis will also offer a surface for the attachment of muscles. And just between the transverse processes and from the centrum or the cell body is what we call the hypophysis. Very dominant in rabbits and absent in human beings. This can also offer a surface for the attachment of muscles in rabbits. So majorly, the projections you can be able to find on the surface of a lumbar vertebra in a human being, for example, can actually be able to get named as the anapophysis projecting from the transverse processes and the metapophysis on either side of the neurospine. So I've told you the neurospine is long and large to offer surface for the attachment of abdominal muscles. On either side of the neurospine are what we call the metapophysis. They actually offer a surface as well for the attachment of muscles. We've talked about the transverse processes, which are actually long and large to offer a surface for the attachment of abdominal muscles. We've talked about the anapophysis that projects from the transverse processes, also offering a surface for the attachment of muscles. The hypophysis in rabbits, that is between the transverse processes and projecting from the centrum, will also offer a surface for the attachment of muscles. The neural canal is wide to allow the passage of the spinal cord. Each and every vertebra, with an exception of what we may have, for example, like the caudal or the coccygene, should have a neural canal that can allow the passage of the spinal cord. And we have what we call the centrum also being large in this lumbar vertebra, so that it can be able to offer support to the vertebral column, because it has to support one, the thoracic vertebra and the cervical vertebra just on top of it. So the centrum must be large to offer that support. And of course, to again protect the delicate spinal cord passing just through it. So these are just the features of what you call a lumbar vertebra. Thank you so much for your time.